De-radicalization program obviously didn't work for Melbourne gunman. An Islamist extremist shot dead by Australian police after an armed standoff had recently gotten out of prison and was involved in a state-run de-radicalization program in the 6 months prior to the deadly attack. 29-year-old Somali-born Yacqub Khayre lured a sex worker to an apartment on Monday night in order to hold her hostage. Khayre shot and killed the service apartment's clerk as a way to lure officers to the premises before he ambushed them. He called the national emergency number and a news agency, claiming that he had a bomb and a hostage. The suspect then hid outside the building and was watching officers when they arrived at the scene. Khayre only broke his cover after a special operation group arrived. He immediately began shooting, with officers returning fire, killing him instantly. Khayre was an Australian citizen who came to the country as a refugee, aged 3. He was also a drunk and a meth-head with a long criminal history. Police said he was referred to a program meant to counter Islamic extremism after he was released from prison last December after serving 4 years for a violent home invasion. He was reportedly radicalized in 2008. A year later, he traveled to Somalia to train with terrorist organization Al-Shabaab. Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews. Australia has thwarted several planned attacks in recent years. Aussie cops thwart Christmas Day ISIS bomb plot. Up to 400 cops from different agencies of Australian law enforcement came together to stop an Islamic State-inspired bomb plot in Melbourne. The plan was said to target busy public places such as Flinders Street Station, St. Paul's Cathedral, and Federation Square. The terrorist attack may have been planned for Christmas Day. Police believe the Islamic State-linked suspects plan to use bombs and firearms or knives. Thankfully, the cops have been watching the suspects for weeks and carried out a series of armed raids that resulted in 5 men being arrested. Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said the plot was one of the most substantial to have been disrupted in recent years.
Australian teen planned kangaroo suicide bomb. A radicalized Melbourne teenager appeared in court on Thursday accused of planning to pack a kangaroo with explosives in an ISIS-style attack. 19-year-old Sevdet Ramadan Basim pleaded not guilty to 4 terror charges, so he will face trial at the Victoria Supreme Court. Australian Federal Police allege Basim outlined his plans for the attack during online conversations with an unnamed 14-year-old boy in England. Police say Basim wrote about atrocities he planned to commit on Anzac Day last year, as Australia remembered its war dead. Basim allegedly wrote that he would paint a kangaroo with an ISIS symbol, pack it with C4 explosives, and set it loose on police officers. He also stands accused of plotting to run down and behead a police officer before launching a suicide attack. "I'd love to take out some cops," the teenage jihadi allegedly wrote to his firebrand British pen pal. Basim was arrested on April 18th last year, 1 week before Anzac Day, when police held 5 Melbourne teenagers on terror charges and seized knives and swords. He faces charges relating to internet searches and communications carried out with the intention of preparing for a terrorist attack. However, prosecutors withdrew a 5th, more serious charge, punishable by a maximum sentence of life in prison. The British teenager who communicated with Basim, now aged 15, was sentenced to life in prison in the UK in October for his role in the plot.
Gunmen are reportedly holding dozens of hostages in a Sydney central business district-linked cafe. Hostages are being held by what witnesses say are at least 2 gunmen at a cafe in the central business district of Sydney on Monday. News footage shows the hostages were forced to hold up a flag with Arabic writing on it at the windows of the store. One witness said 2 suspects arrived at the Lindt Chocolat Cafe before 10 a.m., with one of them holding a blue sports bag. The pair entered the cafe and shut down the automatic sliding doors. Unconfirmed reports state one of the gunmen contacted the police and said he had set up devices all over the city and requested to speak to the Prime Minister live on radio. Hundreds of police officers with heavy gear were deployed to Martin Place. Occupants of nearby buildings were evacuated. Authorities have set up an exclusion zone, which includes the Martin Place train station. A 25-year-old man from northwest Sydney suspected of planning a terrorist attack in Australia was detained this morning. Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott said it's not clear whether the attack was politically motivated.
Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews.
Australian authorities foil alleged Islamic State beheading plot. A senior member of the Islamic State in Australia was arrested during counter-terrorism raids launched by Australian police in Sydney and Brisbane on Thursday. The operation was conducted 48 hours after police reportedly intercepted a phone call made by Mohammed Ali Barayaleh, reportedly Australia's most senior member of the Islamic State, who ordered a terrorist act be carried out on Australian soil. The plan reportedly included the random kidnapping of an Australian citizen from the street and their beheading, with footage of the act sent to and released by the Islamic State's propaganda department. More than 800 police raided over a dozen properties across 12 suburbs in Sydney and parts of Brisbane. A total of 15 people were arrested. Mohammed Ali Barayaleh and a 22-year-old Sydney man, Omar Jan Azari, are accused of planning the terrorist acts. 9 of the 15 detainees were later released.